A Girl Called Harris. Chapter 3. For the first hour of the journey, the carriage was filled with the excited babble of 7 children, all trying to talk louder than each other. Charlie sat and scowled. It was enough to give anyone a sore head. In the end, his patience ran out. "Whisht!" he hissed. It went unnoticed amid the hubbub. "Shut up!" he yelled. "Just shut up, will you?" Silence descended on the compartment. 7 faces turned to him. "You're hurting my head," said Charlie. "My mother," began one of the girls, the one closest to Charlie's age. She sat up straight as she spoke, as if seeking her absent mother's approval. "She says it is the height of rudeness to tell people to be quiet like that." "I want boil your head," said Charlie. The girl's mouth formed a perfect O, and her eyes widened. She must be from the West End, thought Charlie. One of the big houses up round Kelvingrove Park, probably. She would look down on his sort, reckoned Charlie. He'd never been up there, but he'd heard the houses were as big as palaces, with gardens the size of football pitches. He didn't know how big a football pitch was, but he was certain it would be pretty big. The smaller girl, sitting next to her, giggled and grinned at Charlie. The girls were dressed in the same style of coat, dark purple with buttons made up to look like flowers in bloom, and her hair was plaited to match her elder sister's. "Aye," she said, her voice light and airy. "I want boil your head, Ailey." That sparked uproar. Even Charlie grinned. 2 of the boys began to chant, "A wan boil your head, a wan boil your head." Charlie winked at the younger sister, who smiled back, revealing 2 missing front teeth. The door to the compartment was tugged open, and the uniformed woman's head poked through the gap. "Children!" she bellowed. And at once the compartment quietened. "There will," she continued, now pushing a hand through the gap to join her head, a long bony finger extended towards them, "there will be no heads boiled in my train. If you cannot behave in an appropriate manner, then you shall sit in silence all the way to Oban." She pronounced the port's name, as if issuing a ban. Oban. Which she was. They were not allowed to make a sound, she announced. "I shall leave the door open all the way to Oban. If I hear so much as a squeak, the perpetrator will be out in the corridor to stand the rest of the way to Oban." Charlie thought about taking up her challenge. He didn't like being told what to do, in particular by people like this bossy woman, people like teachers and ministers and the policemen who'd stroll up and down Scotland Street like he owned the place. Their sort thought they owned people like him, and the rest of the strollers. But Charlie McGinn was not going to be owned by anyone. One night, after he got in trouble again with mean Murdo, his mother wrapped a cold towel around his smarting hand and instructed him, "Don't let anyone cage you, Charlie. You can be as free as a bird." There weren't many birds in Glasgow, apart from straggly pigeons. His mother put breadcrumbs on the windowsill after clearing breakfast, but he never saw a bird come for a feed. He supposed there would be more birds wherever he was going. His mother would enjoy that. Maybe he would write and tell her about them. Then he remembered he was annoyed with his mother, and he was annoyed with this bossy woman as well. He decided the best thing to do was close his eyes. He would be away from her soon, and she might choose where he was going to be sent, so he'd best not annoy her any more. He didn't want to end up on some smelly farm clearing cow dung. That's what Robbie said happened to boy evacuees from Glasgow. He said his auntie's friend's wee boy had ended up on a farm, so that's how he knew. "Everyone smells in the country," Robbie told the strollers. Charlie didn't believe him. Robbie made things up, but he was worried about what sort of family he would be sent to. As the train rolled on through the countryside, the children fell asleep. It was warm in the compartment, even with the door open a little way, and the excitement that stoked the start of the first adventure of their lives was wearing off. Charlie was woken by the shrill toot of the engine's whistle. He sat up, and out of his window, for the first time in his life, he saw the sea. It was as grey as the clouds above, but Charlie smiled. He couldn't help himself. Maybe this really would be the adventure his mother had promised. He was still annoyed with her, but he did wish she could see this. When he wasn't annoyed with her any longer, he would write and tell her about it. She said he was good with words, like she was. She said he was good at describing things, even if Mean Murdo said his spelling was diabolical. The train ducked into a tunnel, and one of the smaller boys yelped in fright at the sudden darkness. It emerged into the harbour, where a scattering of boats bobbed at anchor. Their bright colours and constant brisk movements, up, down, made them seem happy with their lot, as if being a fishing boat on Scotland's wild west coast was the best job in the world. A couple of boats were tied to a pier, with men passing crates up from their decks. On the other side of the pier, a larger boat was unloading its own cargo. Passengers filed busily down a gangplank, looking, to Charlie's eyes, like a line of ants marching out of one of their mounds. Last summer he and Robbie chopped the top off an ant's nest in the back court of their tenement. The ants poured angrily out, and the flying ones went all over Mrs. Ferguson's sheets, hanging out to dry in the communal washing lines. They ran, and Robbie ran into one of the sheets. His flailing arms tugged it off the line and into the dirt, where he, the sheet, and several hundred ants rolled around to the frantic accompaniment of Robbie's muffled yells. Mrs. Ferguson, the tenement busybody, came out to see what was going on and chased them round the back court, trying to whack them with the big stick she used to beat her carpets. Charlie and Robbie were laughing so much she managed to land a couple of blows before they got away. Charlie got a telling off from his mother when he went home, but he didn't think she really meant it. Nobody had much time for Mrs. Ferguson. "Oh, ban," said the uniformed woman, hauling the door fully open. "Off we go." They followed her through the station, herded together into one column. Charlie was at the back, paired with a little boy who stuck out his hand. "I'm no your ma," said Charlie, but when he saw tears well into the boy's eyes, he took the hand held up to him. "Moin," he said, and tugged the boy after the others. As they were marched through the streets, people stopped and stared at this strange procession. A couple of young men laughed and whistled. The tears found their way out of the wee boy's eyes and tumbled down his face. Charlie felt they were Glasgow's unwanted children, sent away to the edge of the world. He felt embarrassed. Everybody was looking at them. He gripped the little boy's hand and glared at a woman who'd stepped out of a shop to see what was going on. "Here, watch this," he said to the wee boy. Charlie glanced around the onlookers and spotted his target. A man in a suit was standing outside the bank. His jacket was pushed back so his thumbs could be thrust into the pockets of his waistcoat, a waistcoat struggling to contain a large, round stomach. He shook his head as the crocodile of unhappy children trudged past. As they were drawing level with the man, Charlie took a breath. "Hey, mister," he said. The man looked down. Charlie stuck out his tongue, and as they passed kept it sticking out, as if he was saluting the king on a march past at Buckingham Palace. It wasn't much, but it was enough. The man's face went red, and the wee boy started to giggle. He looked up at Charlie again, and this time he grinned. Charlie grinned back. He felt in a much better mood now.